Good afternoon. It is good for us to be here. We a couple of announcements. We begin. First, was just told to me Robert Berry has had some kind of a medical event today, possibly a stroke. They're still waiting on some test results. He is in the hospital here in McPherson at least overnight as they run some more tests, and he's under observation. But remember Robert Berry in our prayers tonight. We have a couple of events coming up, things to put on your calendars. There's a children's event. What am I calling that? A children's get-together, kids' night out, kids' night in, parents' night, I don't know. Kids, bring your kids to the building on October 17th at 6 o'clock. Okay. October 17th, 6 o'clock. If you know any children or can find any children, bring them here at the building. And then if you're curious, ask Tracy. She's got all the answers. We will have a soup, chili, bean, and cornbread supper. I like all of those things, so it's going to be a good night. Saturday, October 25th at 6 here at the building. And there's also a trivia event being planned. It may be a trivial event. I'm not sure, but we'll see. And then there's several other things. There's a lads. If you need some Lads to Leaders information, see Greg about registration information. The Hogback mission trip will be leaving here in just a day or two. Tomorrow morning. Okay, so pray for those that are traveling to New Mexico and for the work that they'll be doing there. Keep the those in your prayers that have been baptized recently. Hope Schmidt, Ivan Moravik, and then Trevor and TJ Ferguson and Hunter Short also. So several baptisms that we rejoice about, but keep them in your prayers for growth. And that about does it. Any other announcements we need to make tonight? Okay.
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior. Story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, perfect delight, visions of rapture now burst on my sight. Angels descending, bring from above, echoes of mercy, whispers of love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I in my Savior am happy and blessed, watching and waiting, looking above, filled with His goodness, lost in His love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story.
Shall we pray? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you for the beautiful weather, the changing of the seasons that you have given us. We certainly know that you are in control of everything, and we are certainly thankful for your blessings. Thank you for this time that we have set aside this midweek just to focus on you and to learn more about your word. Pray that you'll be with us tonight and just help us to spend the evening focused on you, learning more about you from whether it's the kids' age or here in the auditorium. We just pray that you'll be with those who have prepared for tonight, and pray that they will recall what you would have them teach to us. Pray that you'll be with us this week. Those who are traveling to Hogback tomorrow from Lubbock or from here, we just pray that you'll watch over us and help us safely arrive in Farmington tomorrow evening. Pray that you'll be with those who are recently baptized and just help us to continue reaching out to them and helping them grow. We're so thankful for their decisions, and we just pray that you'll also help us to use it as motivation to refocus on our own Christian walk, as well as just to be the aid, the assistance to them that you have commanded us to be. Pray that you'll be with our nation, watch over our leaders, help them make decisions according to your will. Guide us and direct us in all that we do this week, and help us to be the light that you have commanded us to be. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well,
Well,
any news?
not for me.
Not for me either. I don't think. Okay. I guess we'll just jump right in then.
Should we do any review? Maybe a hair?
We could probably review. We are ready to start Judges chapter 14, but we could review what came before that, Judges chapter 13.
Yeah.
And in Judges chapter 13, we read about Samson.
No, we didn't.
Well, yeah, we did.
Well, only a little.
Well, we learned what he was going to be, if not who he was. We got told about his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Manoah, and the angel came and told them that they were going to have a son. And we talked about that theme that we see repeated through the scriptures on various occasions, where we have a couple that are not able to conceive, but then eventually do, and it's as though God is waiting for the proper time to send who He wants to send through them, and it is it's going to be a special occasion and a special event, special child. So they receive the news that they're going to have a son, and how does Mr. Manoah react?
He's intrigued by this proposition. He wants to see the guy.
Yeah, he'd like to talk to the guy that just told his wife she's going to have a baby. And so he asks God to send him back so that I can talk to him. And then the guy comes back, but he comes back again to Mrs. Manoah. He doesn't come back to Mr. Manoah.
Well, she was out working in the field. He was inside. I don't know what he was doing.
Probably doing a honeydew list.
I just think of some more things for her to do.
Yeah. No, he was coming up with the list for her. I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe.
I don't know.
So she runs and fetches her husband so that he can talk to the angel, and then he has some questions, and they tell him that the angel tells him that the child will be a Nazarite from birth. So no haircuts, no strong drink, no touching dead things. It's kind of the Nazarite, the big three of the Nazarite vow.
You can't eat the skin of a grape. You can't eat the flesh of a grape. No grapes.
No grapes. Nothing that even resembles what could be alcoholic.
Yeah.
And so no grapes, no dead things, no haircuts. And then so then Mr. Manoah panics a little bit when he finds out it was an angel and thinks that they're going to die, and Mrs. Manoah has to talk him off a ledge and convince him it's going to be okay. All right, so any other highlights from chapter 13? Johnny.
Not unimportant that technically he was a Nazarite in the womb.
From birth, that's from conception. I think that's right. We talked some about that last week as well.
His mother was required to observe, the dietary and those restrictions as well. Yes.
Yeah, she was under the same ban as the Nazarites from the time that she received the promise, and so I think that's an important point for us to make as well. And we talked some about that last week also. Okay, so we're ready for chapter 14.
All right.
1 through 4.
Then Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. So he came back and told his father and mother, I saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me as a wife. Then his father and his mother said to him, Is there no woman among the daughters of your relatives or among all our people that you go to take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me, for she looks good to me. However, his father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord, for he was seeking an occasion against the Philistines. Now at that time, the Philistines were ruling over Israel.
Okay, so how much time elapses between the end of chapter 13 and the beginning of chapter 14?
Samson grows up enough.
Enough time for Samson to be old enough to marry. So it's one of those interesting things of reading through the Bible when it feels like that just happened. You know, Samson is born at the end of
verse 24.
In verse 24, the Spirit begins to stir in him in verse 25. We don't know, exactly what age that would have been with Jesus. He continued to grow in stature, wisdom and stature, and in favor with God and men. And then at age 12, he appeared in the temple and astounded the priests and things like that. So maybe by age 12, the Spirit had come upon Jesus in such a way that he was already astounding the. What's that? They grew up a lot faster back then, maybe is the thing. And so, what age is Samson at verse 25 when the Spirit of the Lord begins to stir? And then it grows. I mean, there's the Spirit, I think, would have a different relationship or impact or effect upon, a young man of early teens versus an older man, more mature man of later teens, early 20s. So I think we've covered probably, Samson's got to be at least 20, maybe older by now, maybe closer even to 30 at this point. But we can't pinpoint it, but we like to speculate. And so in this section, we see him right off the bat, seemingly, we know he's consecrated. What does consecrated mean? Set apart. That was the whole point of Nazarite vow, to be set apart. I mean, that was the exact wording of it, that they're to be set apart, that they're to be consecrated for a specific period of time or a specific period of service. And for Samson, it was to be his whole life, so he was to be a consecrated man. But he's making a poor choice here of going after a foreign wife, and not a foreign in the idea of it being a racially different thing. It's not the things that we read about in the Old Testament under the Old Law that at times to our modern sensibilities seem to be racially motivated things. I think we need to read the underlying spiritual emphasis behind those things. He was seeking somebody who was not of God's people, and specifically told his father, go and get I saw a woman of the Philistines, go and get her for me for a wife. And his dad questions that. is there nobody of our people that is good enough? And Samson specifically says, she looks good to me. She's pretty. I want her. And so it's seemingly a bad choice, but then also what do we read about it at the end? That God that it says that God, verse 4, that it was of the Lord. And so is this a situation where God is ordaining something that is outside of his previously uttered words, because hasn't God commanded the people not to take foreign wives? I mean, that's the
He
thing.
has commanded it. I'm not nodding yes that
yeah.
he's ordained that.
He has commanded that. And so he's commanded that you don't take foreign wives. I mean, it's expressly forbidden in several different ways. And so I don't think we read that as God saying, Samson, I'm having a different law for you than I have for the rest of my people. But I think it's one of those situations where God is going to use the situation to bring about his will, even when sometimes we make a poor choice initially. God can still find a way to make us useful in his kingdom. And I think that's the way that I read this anyway. How about you?
Pretty much, yeah, that this is all, I mean, that's kind of what I was hinting at with my last point there. This is all supposed to be to the service of God. Doesn't mean that what Samson does is good or right. There are lots of things we can look at our own lives, ways that we grew spiritually or we made connections we would not have otherwise made. And it's not necessarily because something good happened or something that God wanted to happen did, but it's if we will choose to make it work for God after the fact, God doesn't usually let us fail in that regard. I had just a note here. The Philistines are descended from Ham. That's in Genesis 10, verse 14. Says, this is while it's listing the descendants of Ham, then from Cush, then says, and verse 14 says, and Pathrasim and Casluhim, from which came the Philistines, and Caphtorim. So the Philistines are once again somehow related to the Israelites. This is pretty typical of all the people that oppress them. It's all just people related to the Israelites, kind of standard stuff there. I think we had kind of the same point there. Samson aims low. He's supposed to be consecrated. He's supposed to be doing more than the other people around him. He's supposed to be that guide for the people of Israel. Yeah. He's supposed to have been set apart from birth by God to judge them and to lead them back to God. And one of the first things we see him doing after hearing that the Spirit of the Lord has already stirred in him is that he's going to go ahead and start breaking the law. Deuteronomy 7, the first 4 verses are where God said, you're going to go into this land and you're not going to marry the people of that land. You're supposed to drive them out, get rid of them. What's Samson, as a judge, what's he supposed to do? Deliver the people, right? Yeah. And here he is. He's going to make it really hard on himself to do that if he goes through with this. It's just not a very wise decision.
And then on top of that, I mean, he's making a poor choice. And then, what happened to the fifth commandment? Fifth commandment, first commandment with a promise, honor your father and mother, and the Lord, for this is right, that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. And so Samson, who is supposed to be a leader, he's supposed to be the example, the not just a physical or military leader, but a spiritual leader of the people, not only taking a wife of a foreign nation, but also not honoring what his parents are trying to get him to see would be the best choice. And so it's interesting how God is choosing to use how God is choosing to use a man that, at least at the very beginning of his story here, seems to be a man that is not interested in honoring God, is not interested in observing his own vows of being consecrated, and is not interested in maintaining a proper relationship with his parents, with the Lord, those kind of things. So it's a good lesson for us, because how often do we find ourselves having made a poor choice, and in that moment of realizing that we've made a poor choice, do we just kind of throw our hands up and say, well, I've messed it up now, I might as well just continue down this road, or I might as well just forget about serving God because I've already made a poor choice? It's not the way it works. God can use us. God can make good things happen out of our bad choices at times. So we're going to see some good things happen as a result of Samson's poor choices. Any thoughts on this initial introduction to Samson here? April.
Is in a way rebelling because he did have this thrust upon him without any say.
I have wondered that very thought. I've kind of hinted at that earlier by, in past couple of weeks by saying, maybe we judge Samson a little harshly because he was born into this vow. He didn't choose the vow chose him, kind of thing, right? He was placed into this relationship. And I think it would be I think it would be understandable to see that maybe there's some bitterness on his part, that he's got expectations upon him that nobody else has. And I think that may be a proper way to read through some of these decisions that he makes and some of the things in the story. But then still putting that within the context of how is God going to choose to honor that vow or that calling that he placed upon Samson, even when Samson messes up along the way, because, in a sense, God kind of places that calling upon all of us, whether we realize it or accept it or acknowledge it or not from birth, that God is always calling people to follow him. And if we honor that call and go after him with our lives, then that's good. But when we mess up, we can still kind of swerve back into it. We can always come back to that calling. It's never too late. And Samson is going to give us the ultimate, kind of that ultimate lesson of it's never too late to begin doing the right thing by the end of this story. So if there's a couple of like big ideas or big points that come from this story, I think it would be, finish better than you start. Would be maybe one of the biggest lessons that we get from Samson's life. And right here from the very beginning, he's making mistakes, but by the end, he's going to do some good things. And along the way, he does some good things too. It's not all bad. He does some good things along the way, even as he makes mistakes along the way. That's a good point.
You have another one.
Oh, Lisa.
Well, I just want to say it's kind of interesting that the Philistines were descendants of Ham, and of course Ham was cursed by Noah.
Right.
You can kind of see the lineage of those.
Yeah.
Nineveh and the different ones that were.
Ham specifically, it was said that his descendants would serve the others and not be the ones that had dominion. So they have moments of dominion here as the Philistines are being used to sort of chastise and punish the Israelites, but ultimately the Israelites will gain victory over them as descendants of Japheth. No, as descendants of Shem. Semitic peoples. That kind of makes sense. All right. Okay. Any other thoughts or observations? Verses 5 through 9.
Then Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother, and came as far as the vineyards of Timnah. And behold, a young lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, so that he tore him as one tears a young goat, though he had nothing in his hand. But he did not tell his father or mother what he had done. So he went down and talked to the woman, and she looked good to Samson. When he returned later to take her, he turned aside to look at the carcass of the lion, and behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the body of the lion. So he scraped the honey into his hands and went on, eating as he went. When he came to his father and mother, he gave them some, and they ate it. But he did not tell them that he had scraped the honey out of the body of the lion.
Okay. The idea here of power without purity. He's got the power to do some pretty amazing things. If you think about, you're walking down a path or a road and a lion jumps out at you, most of us are not going to be able to do what Samson did, and that is kill the lion barehanded. And so he's got some amazing power, but then his use of that power is suspect. He's not using that power in pure ways, and he doesn't tell his parents what he did, which indicates that he either has no idea that he's defiled himself by handling the dead carcass of the lion, or he doesn't care that he's defiled himself, or that he knows that it's wrong and he just wants to deceive his parent. I mean, there's a whole list of things here, and none of them are good. There's no good reason for not telling them. It's all got to do with him hiding this. And then, as the story progresses, then taking the honey from the carcass of that dead lion just adds to that. He's defiled himself again by handling something that is dead, and eating something out of a dead carcass. I don't know anybody that do think that was a good idea. That's gross. And he does it, but then spreads that to others. He sins in secret because nobody knows what he's done, but then he knowingly spreads that sin to others. And so I think we see some character problems with Samson along the way, that he's not committed to a consecrated lifestyle. And as we learn from that lesson, what's that look like for us when we find ourselves hiding things, or secretly doing things, or saying things, or living ways that don't honor God, and then we allow that to creep into our lives? How does that spread to other people? And I think we need to be very, very careful with that. So there you go. I mean, it's kind of a scary thing.
Yeah. Yeah, on the in regards to why would he have not told them, I think it has to be some form of deception, because how many of us here, if we killed a lion with our bare hands, wouldn't tell somebody? I mean, I'd be like, no, come check. You have to come look at it. I really did it. Here's the dead. I know right where it is. Come look. I killed it with my hands. You'll see there's no marks on it like I killed it with anything else. Samson, for whatever reason, he decided to use God's strength for himself. He defended himself, not that that's like inherently wrong, but he doesn't do what's right after that. He has a Nazirite vow where this makes him, he's supposed to restart that vow in some way or another, and that's, he doesn't. Clearly he doesn't. He shares the uncleanness with his parents by deceiving them. What was his purpose for doing that? We've already talked about the idea. He's not that worried about honoring his father and mother. So here now he can, only to himself, he's the only one who knows it at this point, but he's going to scrape it into his hand and he's going to feed him some honey, and he knows that it makes them unclean till evening. That's Leviticus 11, 24 and 25. By these, moreover, you will be made unclean. Whoever touches their carcasses becomes unclean until evening, and whoever picks up any of their carcasses shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. And this is, lots of different animals meet the subject, but they would be unclean, and they were supposed to do something specific for that, and they don't know that they're supposed to do it. Samson probably does. Why else would he not tell them? But it's almost like he gets to have a little bit of that rebellious young man in him. He gets to live that out in just a little bit of a way. Another little bit of perhaps rebellion. Why is a Nazirite in a vineyard? Now, they had a lot of vineyards around the area, right? It says that verse 5? Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother and came as far as the vineyards of Timnah. What's he doing in the vineyards? Maybe that's the only way to get through. I don't know. But you think that a guy who is restricted from any part of a grape would just simply avoid the area? That would be the smartest thing for him to do. It would be the easiest, the wisest thing for him to do. And his parents must not be with him when he kills the lion, because he goes down, sees the woman, comes back, and does all this out of their purview. They aren't aware it's happening. So they didn't go to the vineyard, it seems. Why was he there? It's just not a smart thing. There's places we shouldn't go. There's things we shouldn't do. So why is he going there? Why is he doing that? To apply it to us. If there's places where only bad things happen, or we shouldn't go there because we would do something bad if we were there, why would we go and test ourselves in that? That's never going to be beneficial. That's never going to be helpful. God has to save Samson from a lion in this moment. He has to send the Spirit rushing upon him in order to save him from this. He just shouldn't have been there in the first place. If he was honoring the commitment God called him to, he wouldn't have been there.
Yeah. And the only reason he went there was to court a woman that he shouldn't have been courting anyway. So, yeah, I mean, he has no no God-honoring reason to be there. Is that a way to say that?
Clint?
Just to keep this in perspective, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but they make it sound like tearing apart a young goat was quite commonplace. What does that mean? It says, as one tears apart a young goat.
Well, I think that's the, so if you've ever done any hunting and skinning of animals, when you make that initial slice, a young goat, you would be able just to kind of peel the hide from the flesh without too much trouble. Without, an older, more mature animal where it's thicker hide and stuff, you have to do more work to get the hide off of it. And so I think it's just the ease with which he kind of tore the hide, tore the animal apart was as though it was a small animal, not a large one. Anyway, we won't go into details. Tim.
Well, you can dig into this forever, because you can think of it, okay, this thing got thrust upon me. I didn't have any choice in this. All of a sudden, I've got this amazing power, but if I told someone, they're not going to believe me anyways.
Yeah.
And then, if you go back a ways, back when he says, he didn't ask his parents, can you find me a wife? He said, no, go to someone down here. He's running the show instead of the parents running the show. I mean, it goes on and on. Well, it's setting up for him to, and we know the end of the story at this point, because we know eventually he realizes his error and he destroys the tent, the building, everything, everybody in it. He had to fall a long ways down to show that, and it gives, there's example of how not to go about paying God or your parents.
Yeah.
There's just, you can dig into this forever.
There's lots of subplots and sidelines and lots of different avenues we can go down, and different character aspects. I mean, we can talk about pride versus humility, and I think Samson exhibits a lot of arrogance and pride through the whole story. And we can talk about the idea of meekness, which would be power under control. And Samson at times seems to just be out of control through the things that he does, even though he exhibits great power in doing so. And then if you look at, some characters we have in the Old Testament, I think are foreshadowing the Messiah, foreshadowing Jesus. I think Samson in a lot of ways is I'll be careful how I say it, but almost the anti-Jesus. He's not the Antichrist, but where he's like everything Jesus is not, where he is not meek and he is not humble and he is not properly using the power that God gives him to honor God. There's so many times when he's honoring himself through those things. And so this is not who we're looking for in a Messiah. He's the kind of the strong military type of, just big over the top leader that some of them were looking for, but he's not the one that God was sending for being the Messiah. So I think there's some interesting contrast there to make between Samson and Jesus. Lisa.
Well, I think it just shows also that even those that were chosen by God, he gave them free will. And
Yes.
so he will not thwart your
Right.
free will.
Yes, he absolutely had the even though he was dedicated from birth, he had the right to honor that calling or dishonor that calling. And the interesting thing is that God stays true to that calling all the way through. Samson, in the midst of that, Samson not being where he really should have been, not pursuing who he should have pursued as a wife, not honoring his parents, all of those things we've said. And what does God do? God pours the Spirit out upon him, which is an interesting way for God to react to all of the things that we would point at Samson and saying, boy, he did that wrong, and he did that wrong, and he did that wrong, and God poured his Spirit out.
I think that the point though is with that is God's wills will be done no matter what.
Yes.
Even though we may have free will and we make the wrong choice, but God has something that's going to happen, and it may take a whole different curvy road to get there, but it's going to happen.
God's will be accomplished, and we can either participate in it or willingly or unwillingly. And it seems like Samson sometimes is an unwilling participant in God's will being accomplished, but God is still going to find a way to use him, and that's an interesting way to look at it. All right, 10 to 14.
Then his father went down to the woman, and Samson made a feast there, for the young men customarily did this. When they saw him, they brought 30 companions to be with him. Then Samson said to them, "Let me now propound a riddle to you. If you will indeed tell it to me within the 7 days of the feast, and find it out, then I will give you 30 linen wraps and 30 changes of clothes. But if you are unable to tell me, then you shall give me 30 linen wraps and 30 changes of clothes." And they said to him, "Propound your riddle, that we may hear it." And he said to them, "Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet." But they could not tell him the riddle in 3 days.
Okay, I think, so an observation here, we have a New Testament passage, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. And that idea of unequally yoked means putting yourself in a position where you are beholden to unbelievers in some way, or you are at their mercy, if you will, or where you are subjugated to their will instead of God's will. And I think we have Samson here placing himself where he can't help but be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. He surrounded himself literally with a community of people and engaged in this feast that customarily and by tradition is going to last 7 days. And we're 3 days into it, and he's got to stay there for the rest of the time. He doesn't have the opportunity to go and just remove himself from this and still end up having honored the marriage the way that he's supposed to. So he has placed himself in a position where it's almost a no-win situation, even for somebody who is consecrated to God, even for somebody who's have the Spirit of God poured upon him. He's almost in a no-win situation here. And then the idea of making a riddle out of something that we've already parsed this out. This was the breaking of his vow of consecration. This was the breaking of his Nazirite vow. Killing the lion, eating the honey from the lion, hiding it from his parents, being in the vineyard, all of those things. And he makes a riddle out of it. He makes a joke out of it. And so how does Samson view his own consecration, his own standing before God, as though it's something that is serious or something that is just kind of whimsical? And it's just kind of troublesome to me that he makes a riddle out of something that he did in violation of God's will. So I don't know what to do with that other than point it out and say, I wish he hadn't done that. But there you go.
I think it's really interesting. He's been consecrated, and his parents were specifically told he will begin to deliver Israel from the Philistines. And here he is. He's been given the power of God to tear a lion like a tiny little animal. That was easy for him to do. He apparently didn't struggle in the matter. He apparently wasn't hurt bad enough that anybody could even tell he did it. This is the power he's been given to defeat the Philistines. And here he is sitting at a feast thrown by the Philistines for a wedding ceremony, and he's going, how can I use that incident to make some money in frankly, an unfair riddle? Who's going to guess that? That's not reasonable. It's really not a fair riddle, and they were dumb to accept the proposition because they say, propound it. They accept. They think that they're going to get one over on this guy, and that doesn't turn out for them. This really feels like the fulfillment of what the text said earlier, that God was seeking occasion with the Philistines. A bunch of unfairness and a bunch of hurt egos are going to cause, it's going to start popping off here in a little bit. And it's because Samson isn't already taking it seriously. Why? Other judges, we see them, the Spirit of the Lord comes upon them, and what do? They rally up Israel. They get them ready to fight right then. Samson had the Spirit of the Lord come upon him, and he goes, I'd like to go get married, and I bet I can get some nice clothes out of it too. And that's his plan? What kind of plan is that?
That's a good point. Tim?
Is it fair to assume they're on a 7-day drunk?
I would assume that there's at the very least there's some fresh squeezed grape juice being partaken of at a wedding feast such as this. We have in
The vineyards
the
of Timnah
vineyards
that he
of
crossed
Timnah.
through to get there.
Yeah, I think
I think the vineyard was brought into this picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're exactly right, and I hadn't kind of drawn that connection, but But I think you're right. Yeah, I think there would have been some carousing and
They brought him 30 young
Things
men
going on.
to spend his time around right before he gets married. I
it's
don't
a
think it was for,
week-long bachelor party.
yeah, it wasn't Bible study. We know that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Seems like I was gonna I had one thing I was gonna add to that, and you just stole it right from me there, Tim. That's I'm trying to remember what it was, but I can't. Okay, so next section.
Then it came about on the 4th day that they said to Samson's wife, "Entice your husband so that he will tell us the riddle, or we will burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you invited us to impoverish us? Is this not so?" Samson's wife wept before him and said, "You only hate me and you do not love me. You have propounded a riddle to the sons of my people and have not told it to me." And he said to her, "Behold, I have not told it to my father or mother, so should I tell you?" However, she wept before him 7 days while their feast lasted, and on the 7th day he told her because she pressed him so hard. She then told the riddle to the sons of her people. So the men of the city said to him on the 7th day before the sun went down, "What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion?" And he said to them, "If you had not plowed my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle."
All right, what was your wedding reception like? Because this just doesn't sound like any fun at all to me. These last 4 days, I mean, I tried, this is one of Justin Porter's favorite verses, it's better to live on the corner of a roof than in the house with a contentious woman. He quotes that one, I don't know how often. But, just the idea of, he brought this on himself, right? Samson is the one that proposed the riddle. He is the one that has perpetuated this strife with his young wife. And what does it tell you what does it tell you about how he views her that he doesn't agree to tell her right away? I mean, as soon as she asks, he doesn't say, oh, honey, I trust you with the answer to this riddle. He knows she's not trustworthy. He knows that she's not seeking the answer to this riddle to honor him or to be part of the inside joke. He knows that something's afoot here, and so he knows he can't trust this woman that he just married, and he withholds that from her, and she makes his life so miserable for 4 days that he finally tells her. I don't know what lesson we're supposed to learn from that whole episode, but none of it's good. Don't marry a Philistine. Check. All right, success right there. Okay. Don't marry a Philistine, and life will be good.
One of the interesting things here is Samson has a well-reasoned response to his wife's complaint. You only hate me, you don't love me, because you won't tell me the answer to the riddle. He says, I haven't even told my parents the answer to the riddle, so that doesn't mean I hate you. And that's, it's a good use of logical reasoning. The problem is, Samson, look at how many logical things you've ignored to get to this point. So it's not that he can't think through his situation. It's not like Samson is simply too dumb to understand what he's done here. Samson is not an unknowledgeable man. He's worked this out for his own benefit, and like Jason said, he's well aware that if he tells his wife or bride-to-be, or however they think about it in this situation, keep saying wife, but that it's not going to work out for him. He's not going to get the clothes he wants. And it's just frustrating to watch a guy that can think it through but will just choose not to, or will choose to think it through in the short term for personal benefit rather than doing the right thing. That's part of what's frustrating about Samson. It's not that he's a dumb guy.
He's impetuous.
It's that he's here for his own benefit, and it's constantly to his downfall. The phrase plowed the heifer. Heifers weren't supposed to be used for plowing. They hadn't yet given birth. I was supposed to have a resident cow expert here that I was supposed to check on that with, but I used Google instead. But they weren't supposed to be used for plowing. So the idea is you weren't supposed to come and ask my wife for the answer to the riddle anyway. You in the agreement, quote unquote, of the formation of a riddle of this game we had, you weren't supposed to go try to find the answer to the riddle from someone I told the answer to. That was an unfair thing to do. Now, again, I think the riddle's not very fair, but you weren't supposed to do that. That wasn't fair on your part. And in fact, I don't know why he's not more mad, frankly, because they threatened to burn up his father-in-law's house with his wife, and presumably the father as well. They threatened to kill him if they wouldn't tell the riddle, which frankly is a little extreme. I know clothes are expensive in that time more than they are now. It's not a $30 pair of jeans and a $15 shirt we're talking about. Clothes were hard to come by, but they threatened to kill him, and his response is, hey, that wasn't fair for the riddle game. So again, how does he view his wife? How much does he care about her here? If I had the strength Samson had and someone had threatened to kill my wife, I think I would have probably done something about it instead of gotten upset that they found out the riddle. I think that would be the last thing on my mind at the moment.
Well, he's about to.
Yeah, he's about to do. Yeah,
he's about to do something.
Strange, but
he's about to do something. So, this is it's an. I don't know. It's an interesting story. There's some odd details in it, just to the way, and a lot of it is just culturally we're not used to a lot of the things that they're expressing in the story. But I don't think I would have reacted any of the ways that Samson has reacted in this story. Whatever. All right, verses 19 and 20.
Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, and he went down to Ashkelon and killed 30 of them and took their spoil and gave the changes of clothes to those who told the riddle. And his anger burned, and he went up to his father's house. But Samson's wife was given to his companion, who had been his friend.
Okay, well, I guess they should have specified the condition of the clothing, because the context would suggest that Samson went down and beat 30 fellas to death and took their clothes off of them, which would have probably translated into some pretty messed up clothing. So he follows the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. Perhaps if you make a wager with somebody and I'm going to give you 30 changes of clothing, I would expect that if you and I made that wager, that I would get something with price tags on it. So if it didn't fit, I could take it back to the store, right? But he's giving it to them with blood stains and everything else on it, and not in great condition. But he honors the bet, but then he does so by killing 30 of their fellow countrymen. So I think they lost the bet, even though they won the bet.
Yeah, something on that. Later on, the next time that he begins to do a lot of stuff to the Philistines, that time he says, "This time I shall be blameless." So Samson even looks back on this event, or in the moment knows, this isn't actually the right thing to do to satisfy the bet. This isn't exactly what is right. This isn't what should be happening, but it is what I'm going to do. And he just goes ahead and does it. The other thing is, Samson's a terrifying presence to the Philistines now. How horrifying would that be? You make a bet with a guy. He's as far as they know, this is a random Israelite man. It doesn't seem as though his parents were of any noteworthy or anything like that. And he shows up, makes a bet, they figure it out, and then he goes and kills 30 people with his bare hands to satisfy the debt. That's an unlikely situation to be able to kill 30 people in a row in a short period of time in order to make good on a bet. That's frightening. And this is what Samson's strength was for, so that he could rally the people of Israel to go fight against the Philistines, and he would have been more terrifying than Goliath on the battlefield. There would be nobody who could stand up against him. All of Israel was afraid before Goliath. They wouldn't go up and touch him. Samson would be worse than that. A guy who doesn't even need weapons to go fight you is incredible in this day and age. I mean, in any day and age. But he uses the strength of God to settle a bet by going and killing 30 random people, and nothing to do with Israel. He goes back to his father's house because he's mad that he lost the bet. He got his anger out on 30 different people's lives, and he's still mad about it. He's still not done being upset that they got one over on him by threatening to murder his wife. And he didn't, seemingly nothing to those guys, but just, he has all the power and he's not doing anything with it that he should. It's frustrating to read.
Are you sure he's not, this was ordained, this mission was ordained?
Say that again?
Well, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him and he went down.
Well, that's an interesting conversation because the Spirit of the Lord shows up shows up at a lot of odd times. I mean, we've already talked about it. You know, he's in the wrong place at the wrong time doing the wrong thing, and the Spirit of the Lord shows up so he can kill the lion. And here, I mean, what has he done at this feast that's honored God up to this point? I can't point anything out that's honored God, and now it's time to make good on a wager that he shouldn't have made, and the Spirit of God comes upon him so that he can honor the wager. Yeah, it's to begin to deliver the people from the Philistines, and which is God using a series of bad choices that Samson makes to bring about his own plan, which God has a history of doing. I mean, read the book of Daniel. Yeah. Read the book of Daniel, and how does God use Nebuchadnezzar? You know, he uses Nebuchadnezzar. How does he use Cyrus? How does he use all of the wicked kings that he uses to ultimately bring about reform to his own people? And so God can use whomever God chooses to use, and the Spirit of God is active in God using exhibiting his strength so that he can do those things. Right.
No,
Yeah.
no, and I would like to say the fact that God ordained it, or God that wants these actions to occur, I don't think that makes them right either. God hardened Pharaoh's heart, right, so that he would not let the people go. But he punished Pharaoh and all the people of Egypt for it. So it wasn't the right thing. It's just that God did it in order so that he could prove how much more powerful he was than all of the gods of Egypt put
Right.
together. That doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean that it was the good thing to do. It means that it was what God wanted to happen in the end.
Yeah.
On,
This one's for
it
you.
seems like here that the Spirit came on Samson at different specific times, but there's other judges that the Spirit came upon them. I just thought they had the Spirit after that. But do you think it kind of comes for an event?
So that's...
She read your feature slides.
Yeah, so I have a note about that. Why does it seem like the Spirit keeps coming and going from Samson? Can he tell when he has the strength of the Spirit? Is the strength actually leaving him in between these times? Sometimes the literal translation of the words is that the Spirit rushed upon him. So I don't know if that means that the Spirit has been there and now it's compelling him to, not compelling him to do these things, but essentially showing him, hey, you have the strength right now. Go do something about it. Or is it that the Spirit
with
is...
the other judges too?
I don't know about the other judges. With Samson
Yeah.
specifically, that's kind
Yeah.
of the... Because with the other judges, you don't typically see it happen multiple times, so it's more convenient for us to understand it as the Spirit came and rested.
Yeah.
Miraculous outpourings in the Old Testament were often not like a consistent behavior. Like if you look at Numbers 11, when all of the elders that are set up and are... they're going to be able to judge the smaller cases, they prophesy for a day or 2 days, I can't remember exactly. And that's all the more they ever prophesied. It's not that the Spirit came upon them so that they could prophesy for a long time. They just had the ability for a short period. And it's possible that that's what's happening with Samson, especially considering toward the literal end of his life. He didn't have the ability for quite some time. And we can't say it's directly his Nazirite vow because he's broken it multiple times, but once he gave someone else the ability to break it for him, then he loses it. So I don't know if that's the final straw. There's a lot of questions that I don't have answers to. I'll quit rambling about it.
Well, I'm trying to look up, I can't even spell. I'm thinking there's a phrase that's something about the need of the moment, or God providing for the need of the moment. And I'm not sure if I'm making that up or if I'm remembering a song or something, but sometimes I have to Google stuff to see if I can find it, what I think it is. But, the idea that God gives us what we need in the moment that we need it. And so I think the idea that the Spirit, there are added measures of the Spirit for different occasions. I think we see that with Elijah and Elisha, where Elisha asks God for a double portion of Elijah's Spirit, indicating that there is a measure of the Spirit, and Jesus had the full measure of the Spirit, as opposed to the 1 Corinthians 11 or maybe is where we're talking about the spiritual gifts and the Spirit gives, God gives the Spirit to whom he wills, in whatever measure he deems it necessary. So I think there's I think there's, the idea that the Spirit can kind of come and go at various strengths is not a bad reading of the text. Chuck told me, by the way, that it was rude of Samson not to clean those clothes before he gave them to the. So I'm getting comments texted into me. Well, to the 30 guys, they all got one garment.
Told him the answer of the
Yeah,
riddle,
so the 30 guys, the 30 guys he entered the wager with.
He
each
propounded
got-
it, and they told him back.
Each got one change of clothing, soiled.
Maybe more than one way.
Well, he worked for it. That's an honest day's work. I don't know how to answer that. Ashkelon, by the way, I'm going to back way up here to where I have a map at because we're going to probably be down here in just a second. There we go. So Timnah is up here, kind of where the wedding was, and then he goes all the way down here to Ashkelon, which is interesting. I don't know why he traveled all the way down there. Maybe he wanted to see the ocean, but he, that's a good distance that he went down there to kill 30 guys and bring their clothes back. I don't know I don't know why he went that far, but I think it could have something to do with spreading the fear of what God is going to do in Philistia to a wider audience, to kind of get the name of God out there. Maybe, I don't know, but he went a long ways to go fulfill that deed and then bring the clothes back to Timnah. Okay, any final thoughts on Samson from chapter 14? What's that?
He washed the clothes by
There's
midnight.
more water there to wash the clothes? What's that? Greg?
I thought it was interesting that his riddle rhymed in English. So I looked it up to see if it rhymed in Hebrew, and it doesn't. But there are some wordplay things that make it poetic.
Yes.
Similar words on each line.
Yeah.
There's a lot fewer words in Hebrew.
And I don't, I know nothing of Hebrew, but, so I can't really speak to that, but, it is interesting to look at the poetry of Hebrew as totally a different thing than the way we think of poetry.
Have similar roots, and
Yeah.
the strong and the sweet have similar word roots apparently that
Okay.
are kind of poetic.
You
Yeah.
got to do something like that again later, at
Yeah.
a time where it seems like he shouldn't maybe be making wordplay at the time, but
Involving a donkey.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next week we'll pick up with chapter 15, and we'll see some more amazing feats of Samson.